hell is this?
Anaconda skin.
Is snakes out there this big?
Okay, I'll be the first to admit my mistakes. When I made that Alligator 2 defense, and no, doing that video is not the mistake I'm referring to, I mentioned that the giant monster movie had become somewhat of a lost art, particularly in the 90s. Then I ended up rewatching Anaconda and realized I had totally forgotten about it. That's because it just kinda gets lost in the likes of Deep Blue Sea and Lake Placid. Both those movies seem to have longer lasting impacts. Deep Blue Sea has that great surprise kill, and Lake Placid has, well, it has Betty White.
I'm rooting for the crocodile. I hope he swallows your friends whole.
There are others too. The Relic is a gory fun time. Bats isn't a giant animal, but has fun with the idea of murderous bats. And Deep Rising is Deep Rising. It's just a blast. Now I'm not saying that Anaconda is better than all of these, but it deserves more than being buried, as it's a step above a couple of them. Let's take a look at what makes a 25-foot snake monster more fun than it sounds.
Snake. Snakes.
Now let me repeat, this isn't about being better than the other creature features that are released around the same time. It's simply about being better than the forgotten entry into that subgenre that Anaconda seems to have become.
Well, that will have to do.
1997 in horror specifically was an interesting year. We had independent breakthroughs like Larry Fessenden's Addiction, sequels to big-name franchises like Amityville, Scream, Alien, and Leprechaun, and wholly original works like Event Horizon, Wishmaster, and Mimic. While almost all of those are either more fondly remembered or received sequels, or both, Anaconda came, was successful, and then just kind of went. And what's wild about that is, like I said, the movie was successful. It made $137 million on its $45 million budget.
Think about how much money this would be worth. Imagine capturing something like this on film for the first time ever.
And it did in fact get sequels. It got 3 standalone sequels before being paired with its most famous contemporary in Lake Placid vs. Anaconda. I thought about talking about one of those, particularly the second one, which is way better than it has any right to be, but the original deserves its due. Written by a trio of men with varying degrees of credits, and directed by a lesser-known journeyman director. That director, Luis Loza, made a couple of 80s movies with the Eric Estrada vehicle Hour of the Assassin, and Crime Zone starring David Carradine. Before Anaconda, he would mix military action and environmental pictures. Sniper, 800 Leagues Down the Amazon, The Specialist, and Fire on the Amazon would kind of give him the experience needed to shoot on a river, but after this, he'd only get 2 more directorial jobs in the next 25 years. 2 of the 3 writers, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr., were a sort of team. They penned Dick Tracy, Turner and Hooch, and even Top Gun together. It's amazing what I find out doing the research for these movies. Why Anaconda needed 3 writers is something I don't think we will know ever for sure, but the 3rd writer, Hans Bauer, also wrote the story for Titan AE and best horror movie you never saw, Highwaymen. In front of the camera is one of the strangest and most diverse casts you can find. It is also violently 90s in a way few titles can match. The 2 main protagonists are Danny and Terry, who happen to be played by Jennifer Lopez and Ice Cube. Then you have the backup protagonists, who are mostly fodder, in Steven, Warren, Gary, and Denise. For these roles, we were given Eric Stoltz, Owen Wilson, Carrie Wurr, and Jonathan Hyde.
Someone get this bloody thing off my freaking hand!
It's missing something, though. How about a past his prime Academy Award-winning actor?
I can blow in 10 minutes, or if you're feeling sensitive, we could turn around and lose 2 days. It's up to you.
Jon Voight is the true villain of this picture as Paul Cerrone, in what I hope is even in the realm of a realistic accent from Paraguay.
You can accept it or reject it. Leave me at the next village.
To add 2 cherries to the top of this sundae, you have Danny Trejo as the first snake victim, and Frank Welker, you know, the voice of Scooby-Doo for over 50 years, as the snake itself. It's a fun group, and you root for almost all these guys. The movie opens with a boat stranded and Danny Trejo calling for help on the CB. Something attacks his boat and it scares him enough that he climbs to the top of the vessel before shooting himself, rather than to be taken by whatever awaits below. Very Tremors of them. The movie also wears its Jaws influence on its sleeve here, as it goes above and beyond to keep the actual snake hidden from view for really much of the movie. This ends up being a good decision, as while the actual practical snake looks fine enough, mostly, the CGI is, well, it's not good. It's not like Tales from the Hood or Night of the Demons 2 bad by any means, but it holds up the least out of anything we'll talk about today. Whatever they did to make the actors look like they're being wrapped up and twisted by the CGI snakes looks good, but it's somewhat undone by the goofy looking computer image. It's not like they had a small budget either, but when you look at something like The Lost World Jurassic Park 2, it gets blown away. To be fair, the first Jurassic Park 4 years earlier still looks amazing today and was able to blend CGI and practical to great effect. We then meet Jennifer Lopez, who is there with her cameraman Ice Cube to shoot a documentary. The rest of the cast plays the narrator, sound engineer, production manager, and a real anthropologist to help them find the long-thought-lost indigenous tribe. They don't all get along and don't all come from the same background, but it works, especially as they all eventually bond against poacher Cerrone, who's willing to sacrifice all of them to get his giant anaconda. They find his boat stuck in the rain, and it's clear, to us anyway, that both driver Mateo and Cerrone have a history. But Dr. Kale is a good dude and offers to take him anyway. This comes back to bite him as their boat gets stuck in the river, and when he goes down to free it, he ends up getting bit by a poisonous wasp in the throat, or stung. Instead of taking him directly to help, Cerrone has other plans and takes over the boat, although he does tell them that he wants to get Dr. Kale the help he needs. He knows a shortcut, and he also just happened to know of and where the tribe they were looking for are.
Our first piece of luck, a Shirishama idol, although this is the subject of some dispute.
I know what I know.
Look, don't let the plot get in the way of the movie for this one. When they come across the boat from the first scene, we discover that Mateo, Cerrone, and dead Danny Trejo are all poachers in it for the money. Mateo gets eaten, but the rest of the crew still hasn't seen the snake yet. Horny Denise and Gary almost get upended by a boar, but no big snake yet. That changes when the anaconda attacks the boat at night and kills Gary. The way the snake wraps around its prey to crush and bite them is cool. You can almost feel their bones being crushed under its massive weight. While Terry tries to kill the snake and save Gary, Cerrone knocks her over before he too is taken captive and tied up. It should also be said that Gary sealed his fate when he sides with Cerrone to find the snake and get some cash out of it. Between being greedy and sex-crazed, you know he wasn't going to make it very long. With Cerrone out of commission, the rest of the crew head home and hope to get Kale the help he needs.
Take us back to crisp sheets and hot showers.
The playoffs and a six-pack.
18 holes of golf and a quadruple gin and tonic.
LA traffic and my cellular phone.
Don't start.
That's the bonding I talked about earlier. Westridge is just as stuffy as his name, and there's a conflict early on involving golf and loud music. By this point in the movie, though, they're all survivors, for now anyway, and discussing the first thing they're going to do when they get back to civilization. Of course, there's dichotomy here, but it's fun to see them get along so well. Denise isn't in a party mood though, as she's too distraught, and while the rest of the group goes to cut the boat free of its shackles when it gets trapped near a waterfall, she goes for the kill on Cerrone. He kept calling her baby bird in the absolute creepiest way, and is able to use her grief to overtake her. And we have the only non-snake death in the movie. He snaps her neck and drops her body in the water. The anaconda comes back for an easy meal, and Westridge essentially sacrifices himself. Again, some cool character growth here, to let the others onto the boat. The snake is shot and Cerrone goes crazy, attempting to kill the remaining survivors. A groggy Dr. Kale stabs him with a tranquilizer and passes out again. We then get the tried and true false ending, where the remaining crew finds a dock to get gas, but it's been a trap from Cerrone. The snake they killed wasn't the biggest thing out there, and Cerrone has our heroes tied up as bait. They're able to break free and turn the tables on Cerrone. He gets a little tenderized and a lot eaten, which just leaves Danny and Terry to kill the hunter. As they run throughout the dockhouse and figure out how to kill it, the snake realizes its mobility isn't quite there with a surly Oscar winner jamming up its gullet. It spits out Cerrone, who is now melted like you took a Hot Pocket out of the microwave a tad too late, and he has the audacity to wink at Terry before falling over dead. This is dumb and silly, and 12-year-old me loved every second of it in theaters. I remember arguing that he may not be actually dead and could come back for a sequel. He didn't, and we would eventually get hassled by the Hoff in the third sequel.
Once you see this thing, you unload everything you can until it stops moving, and you shoot only for the head.
But I'll wait for Tyler to discuss that awfully good horror movie. Danny and Terry hatch a plan to blow the snake up and almost get caught in the blast, but make it out as the badly done CGI snake floats down into the water. Fake ending number 2 ensues before Danny finally gets an axe into its head and throws a classic 90s one-liner at the same time.
Bitch.
They are safe now, and of course are treated to finding the tribe they were looking for the whole time. The cast would go on to make other horror movies, some better like The Cell, The Mummy, or Crimson Peak, and some that aren't as good like The Haunting or nearly everything Kari Wurr did in the mid-2000s. Anaconda was nominated for tons of Razzies and other bad movie awards shows, and may not be as fondly remembered as some of the giant animal movies I mentioned at the start, but it deserves better. I won't let it just go into the mists of the Amazon and be forgotten to time, because I had just as much fun as 12-year-old me did rewatching this, and this movie has a good time. Check it out and let its charm twist around you.